Hey and welcome everyone, Hammeh here, and we have a new teaser today for what looks to be a continuation of Hero 27. This is being recorded live on YouTube, so a big shout out to everyone who is joining us here for this short spell. This will be up as a video on YouTube soon after. Sorry if there are a few little clicks in the background while I jump between things. It's great to see you all joining us live for this. So, what have we got? I'm going to keep this as brief as possible. I can talk on a bit, but there are some cool things to analyse in this teaser. We have what appears to be a diagram for the weapon of Hero 27. I'm going to go through the different bits of this, and let's have a look. You're saying for louder. I've turned up my microphone volume a bit. I hope that it is good for you. So, what do we have? I will draw your attention to a few little bits here. The first thing I'm going to do is draw your attention to the bottom of this page. If I pop this up, hooray, this works. Can you see that we have a little mouse there with a little cat's paw? The colour of that cat, if you're an Overwatch Lore or comic fan, you will certainly recognise. Now, where do you recognise this paw from? Well, it's a good job that I teed up a comic for you because Hammeh hopes, yep, I've got it right. So I can't zoom on this anymore, but you may remember Reflections, the Overwatch comic from last year. Now, in that comic, we saw little slices of life of all of the different Overwatch heroes at that point in Christmas, what they were up to. Now, you may remember in the Lindholm family, we saw the little scene of Reinhardt with Brigitte, some people pronounce it, at his side, of course, with Torbjorn and his wife, Torbjorn's children, some of his grandchildren, and that certain little ginger cat at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that right in the middle there. So I like that little reference. A lot of people said, oh my goodness, Jetpack Cat. I know, Jetpack Cat would be awesome, but I think that has got to be the same cat. Like, to me, that's the same cat. Come on, it's an orange paw. I know that's probably not the right colour, but I reckon that's got to be the same cat. What do you reckon? It's doing all right, isn't it? So I think that this, okay, it's in Swedish. We see the cat as the little continuity element. I think that we've got to say that this is at Torbjorn's house, right? There's got to be a Lindholm kind of board. So, moving onwards. If it's a Lindholm kind of board, what do we have? Well, we have, and I'm sure there are some Swedish of you watching this, it's kind of like Slaga. You're going to have to excuse me for my Swedish pronunciations, but we have the diagram for what translates into English as a flail. Now, flail-wise, weapon-wise, there are a few little interesting things we can see here. I'm going to jump on to our next little image, which is a flail. Traditionally, these are sort of some traditional medieval style flails, but the defining characteristic of a flail is that basically you have this sort of weapon head attached to a handle by some kind of intermediary flexible rope, strap or chain. And if you wiki it up, then the characteristic virtue of a flail is that you can strike around, according to Wikipedia anyway, a defender's shield or parrying element. So some kind of weapon that could potentially reach around shields. That could be interesting. However, of course, you can't be very precise with this at short range because you're reaching out with this long handle. So we have a Slaga, a flail. And this is what this weapon is meant to be. Now, if we jump on a little further down, I'm going to zoom in on the top right of this image now. And we can see, as well as our flail and the various different measurements, we can see little things here in the top right corner. You can see this says, I think, Slaga med, and I think it's Kedja is the pronunciation. That's K-E-D-J-A. Now that translates to chain. So we have a flail on a chain here. That kind of makes a little bit of sense. Throwing out this flail on a chain, you can see the head of this flail is expanding as a weapon, so it's kind of almost like a melee weapon that you could hit someone with to start with, but then it has this other mode which you can throw it out and you have this flail and chain. Now I got thinking a little bit about this just now. This is only released about sort of 50 minutes or so. Yeah, a mace form and a flail form. I like that. Bjornson in the chat jumping in there. Very similar to Hog's Hook, says Cathel341. Slaga 3.0 says Dennis Beck here. That's interesting. There have been other versions of this flail before. A very nice little spot there. See, it's nice doing this live. You will have to excuse me for my few little stumbles and fumbles, but it's good to talk this stuff through. Now, there are a few other translations, bits of Swedish on here that I feel we should jump into because I find them a little bit interesting. The point just made, very similar to Hog's Hook. What purpose is this weapon going to have in the game if a hero is wielding it? Now, we have a grapple, let's not forget. I was thinking, could this be a grapple? But we do have Widow's kind of grapple. Could we have someone using a grapple in a bit of a different way? Well, Widow's grapple kind of does it all. You wouldn't replicate Widow's grapple, I think. We do have a hook, as has already been said. Hog's Hook. for putting things in. So how could you be using this weapon? Puppet Squid said, a medium-ranged melee secondary, maybe an AoE swing. That could be interesting. I like thinking of spin-to-win mechanics. So if you're a MOBA player, if you play Heroes of the Storm, you might see Sonya swirls in a circle. If you've played that game called League of Legends, you might know a hero called Garen and spinning to winning. He spins in a circle. Maybe Brigitte, or the bearer of this weapon, could swing in a circle and do a bit of area denial in some kind of way. And of course, Braden Void says, don't forget the I'll knock some sense into you. I do like that. That, of course, Braden referring to in the chat is the specific line that was used on Twitter, on Facebook, that went with this image. So, many cool uses that could be used for this weapon. I'm not going to speculate on that too much because at the moment we have no idea. But there is one more thing in this kind of Swedish translation that I'd like to go through. I was thinking maybe you could use this flail almost like a bolas, you know, the kind of weapon that was thrown. Could you use this to entangle people, slow them down at range perhaps? Could you affect some kind of ranged slow with this that's longer maybe than May's slow? May obviously slows within her endothermic blaster melee range. Could you throw this out on a chain, entangle people's legs, or something like that? This kind of nice slowing action. I like that idea. Pure speculation and headcanon, nothing to base that on. Now, moving on to other little bits of Swedish we have here, and I'm going to hope that my other little zoom in, this is where I just look at it and say, you know what, I've not pulled up that extra image. Just give me 2 seconds and a little bit of clicking, and I should be able to, I very much hope, get that for you. I know, I've realised why that's not the case. It's because it's on this one. There we go. So you can see in the middle there, Titan Legering, titanium alloy. That's what this weapon is made out of. And there are other references to titanium as well. Now, this is pretty cool, and it's kind of interesting because titanium, as you know, a metal and as an alloy, is pretty light comparatively. It is as strong as steel, and then you can alloy it with other things to give it different properties. You know, make a mix of titanium and another element. Titanium is twice as strong as aluminium, 45% lighter than steel, and only 60% heavier than aluminium. So using titanium to make this, you know, something made out of steel, which is 32 centimeters long at the handle, you know, that's not small. If you've got something steel made of that kind of weight, and depending on the thickness, that's going to be pretty heavy. So the very fact that this is kind of titanium, I think it's pretty cool. It could suggest that it's something a little bit, yeah, with a 20 centimeter head, says Tech Bandit as well. Dusttail Reverse says, could be because of the user to pack a punch, but still be quite lightweight. That's certainly an option. So I think that, you know, obviously we have a lot of strong people in the Overwatch universe, but this being light gives it, you know, an additional maneuverability maybe. You know, this is not someone of Reinhardt's stature, shall we say, be they male, be they female, whatever their body type, whatever their body size. Maybe someone who's not as big physically as Reinhardt could wield this. Also quite interesting. Now, finally, I'm just going to jump onto the other Swedish translations we can see. There is this list that you can see on the top right corner. On the actual image, it's in the bottom right corner, but I'm just going into this nice little zoomed in piece. Now, Whip It Good makes an excellent point in chat. Are those little rocket boosters under the collapsible wings on the weapon? Do you know what, Whip It? I thought that, and then I took a look at the Swedish list in the bottom right, and I tried to translate these the best I could. Google Translate. Julia Smith says, what's the top left design? We'll have a look. Muffy says, I love to be a Swede. Please do let me know what you think of the translations and these little bits down here. So these are going to be quite hard for you to see, but the image is kind of zoomed in a little bit. I've had a look. So the top right one is like microfobrenner. Now those are micro burners. Brenner is burners, I think, and sorry if that pronunciation is a little bit off. So, Whip It Good's point, are those little rocket boosters under the collapsible wings on the weapon? You know what, Whip It? If they've got micro burners on, think about it. Is this like a miniaturized version? You know that Reinhardt's rocket hammer has got burners on the back, right? I think that these little micro burners, you know, give it a bit of extra punch. Maybe this is a lighter weapon, but if you've got some rocket power behind it and it's very, very strong, that could be very, very, very awesome as well. So that's microburner. The next bit down is Titan Stav, titanium rod. So this is basically a list. This data pad is a list of the components needed to make this particular weapon. So we've got a titanium rod. We've got gummiblad, rubber leaves or sheets, kind of like, I'm imagining these as like rubber washers or separators kind of things as well. Next we've got, and I couldn't read this precisely, but it looks like, he says, quickly pulling up Photoshop. Do excuse me while I can just zoom in a little bit. it's a certain kind of screw. And I couldn't say it's like something 3mm Forsank screw. So it's like a 3mm Forsank screw. Some kind of screw is the next item down. We then have Hogmutter as the next item there, which is like a hog nut, some kind of like nut or bolting element. And then finally we have the very bottom item on the left, which looks like Vegas or Vegan's bolt, and bolt means some kind of bolt. So we've got nuts, we've got bolts, we've got the sort of the washers. That's what I was looking for. Gummiblad or rubber leaf or sheet, this kind of washer that goes in the middle as well. And then titanium rod and then micro burners. So put all those together with some titanium alloy. What do we have? Probably a new weapon. I think I've probably already gone on a little bit long enough about this, shall we say. But that was a nice, interesting little look through this. There is a weapon. It's a weapon put together probably in the Lindholm, in the Torbjorn household, if this cat paw is anything to go by, and that little speculation is true. There was a question as to what the top left piece is. I think that if you have a look at the top left diagram there, that's kind of how these elements on the flail actually expand outwards. You can see the 3 different bolts there if you look in this top left diagram as to how these can be clamped together next to the head of this flail, so it can be used as a melee close range weapon, and then they kind of extend or spring out on those 3 separate bolts that you can see to create this flail with chain that we saw in the top right. So there we go. That is our latest teaser. So what do you think of that? I'm going to wrap this up now. This has been a short little stream just going live. Thank you for everyone who's joined live. If you're watching on YouTube, do let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think this is going to be Brigitte? My final thought before I leave you is that we have had pretty much 3 teasers in the course of 4 days. That is very rapid fire. It's a lot more rapid fire than Orisa's teasers were last year. Back in 2017, Orisa was teased with a blog on the website, with something on Twitter, over the course of maybe 1.5 to 2 weeks. We've had 3 teasers in 4 days. So my final thought on that is that, are we going to see Brigitte announced? Or if this is not Brigitte, who could it be? My second quick thought, the only other Swedish character we've seen, we don't even know if he's Swedish, maybe a little bit stereotypical of me, but we saw Torbjorn in his Comic Destroyer fight what was potentially a fellow colleague of his from the past called Sven. But are we going to see a new hero released tomorrow? Tomorrow from the releasing of this video is the 27th of February, Tuesday, of course, a PTR day for Overwatch. We've had 3 teasers in the course of like 4 days from Thursday last week. I really feel that we could see something this week, you know. It would be very funny if this went quiet suddenly and then we heard nothing till next week. I don't know. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and you're watching on YouTube, please do throw a like and subscribe. It really does help me out. I have a bunch of Overwatch lore and other things coming for you this week. And thank you very much for your patience. I know I've had slightly quiet last few weeks on the video front. It has been a very busy January and half of February for me, but I'm getting going again with a whole bunch of videos and looking forward to it. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. It's been great to have you guys live. Great to see you with us. Do let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you're live, I'll say goodbye to you right now. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.